Just 50 years ago, the ponds and marshes of the Midwest that had once carried huge flocks of geese and ducks were but parched wasteland. Years of relentless, land-punishing farming, years of ditching and draining for yet more acres to plow, had sucked the land dry. And when the drought came in the 30s, there wasn't anything left to hold the soil together, and it just blew away. It was tragic for the farmer, for the nation, but for the wildlife, it was disaster. Among those concerned about the staggering loss of wildlife habitat was a Midwesterner, J. Norwood Darling, best known as Ding. A conservationist and a sportsman, Ding fondly remembered the duck-filled ponds of his youth. As the influential political cartoonist for the Des Moines Register, Ding used his cartoons to focus public attention on what was happening to his beloved Iowa countryside. Ding's conservation cartoons lobbied hard for a federal program that would buy and restore the lands that had once been waterfowl habitat. His efforts were successful. In 1934, the Migratory Bird Hunting Stamp Act was passed, which required every waterfowl hunter to buy a federal duck stamp. The money from the stamps was to be used to conserve waterfowl habitat. The first duck stamp of 2 mallards was made from one of Ding's drawings. Today, the duck stamp program is alive and well, and the annual open competition to select a design for the stamp, now called the Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp, is intense. Entries by the hundreds pour in from across the country, from fledgling artists to seasoned wildlife illustrators. The judges, art professionals, and wildlife experts carefully examine the entries not only for biological accuracy, but also to gauge the feeling that the design evokes. Tension slowly builds during the final round as each judge assigns a point value to the entry. The design with the highest total will be next year's duck stamp.
Bill Morris is from Mobile, Alabama, and he got that #1 with the widgeon. Beautiful pair of widgeon.
To some, the new duck stamp will mean a handsome, valuable addition to their collection. But to America's wildlife, the stamp will mean much more. As autumn chills the Northland, the great flocks set out on their long migration southward, down from the Arctic North, out from the nesting prairies. By the tens of millions, they fly southward, along the Pacific, through the central states, down the Mississippi, down the Atlantic coast. Along these 4 major flyways lie nearly 200 national wildlife refuges and hundreds of smaller waterfowl nesting areas that have been bought with duck stamp dollars. Our National Wildlife Refuge System embraces a variety of wet environments, wetlands, each crucial in its own way to the needs of different species of migratory waterfowl. In the prairie pothole country of the upper Midwest, 7 million ducks nest around sloughs and ponds. Coastal marshes shelter geese by the millions during the winters. The bottomland hardwood swamps in the lower Mississippi Valley are wintering grounds for mallards and wood ducks. Duck stamp monies are used to purchase this waterfowl habitat. The decision on which wetlands to buy is made by the Migratory Bird Conservation Commission, composed of cabinet officials, congressional and state representatives. Since the program began, more than 3.5 million acres have been bought for wildlife. Once purchased, these lands are managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide the particular nesting and feeding requirements that waterfowl need. Water, the most essential habitat ingredient for all species of ducks and geese. Hundreds of water impoundments have been constructed on refuges to restore water to once drained lakes and marshes. Water levels are carefully controlled so that nourishing food plants will grow and safe nesting areas created. On some refuges, farming ensures that grain will be left standing for food. There are many ways to manipulate habitat to benefit wildlife. Here, fire is used as a management technique to rid the marsh of dead, matted grasses. From the ashes, wildlife food plants will grow and flourish. Managing refuge lands effectively requires sound biological information. Spring and fall surveys monitor waterfowl population levels.
Over the lower Chesapeake Bay, we've got 8,000 snow geese, 1,000 mallards, 500 black ducks.
Thousands of geese and ducks are briefly captured and banded each year to provide information about migration and survival rates.
You gotta have these checked out. Anytime.
A lightweight radio transmitter will reveal vital information on this mallard's daily movements. Data from all these activities adds a wealth of information on waterfowl migrations, populations, and health. But the National Wildlife Refuge System is for people, too. There's no better place where we can experience and appreciate wildlife on its own terms. This outdoor classroom allows teachers and students to explore nature firsthand. For many, it's the first time they'll see wildlife outside of a zoo or away from a TV set.
We have the snow goose that's in the blue phase. They all call the blue goose the blue phase of the snow goose. So it has the white head and neck and the grayish blue body. There, yeah, we have some whistling swans. I guess we have about 500 or so. And we have a few bald eagles here on the refuge. The visitors don't seem to bother them at all. They'll just sit on the snags there all day, pose for pictures, and the visitors couldn't be happier, you know. They come back to the center all excited.
And visitors come to the refuges by the millions to see and enjoy the magnificence of wildlife in its natural setting. On some refuges, hunting is permitted and is carefully controlled to provide a safe, high-quality outdoor experience. And the fishing can be great, too. Wildlife and people are thriving on America's refuges, but the refuges encompass only a small fraction of the wetlands that waterfowl use and need, and therein lies a major problem. Half of the wetlands that existed when the Pilgrims landed have been lost, an area larger than the state of California. And the destruction continues at the rate of nearly 500,000 acres a year. Land for farming is still being wrung out of wetlands by the hundreds of square miles each year. Wildlife is still being forced from the few remaining coastal marshes to make room for roads and houses. Migratory waterfowl are an international resource. The responsibility for their conservation is shared by nations, states, provinces, private organizations, such as Ducks Unlimited, and also by individuals through their purchase of duck stamps.
Hi, can I help you? Yes, I'd like to buy a duck stamp, please. Okay. Anything else? No, that'll be all. That's $7.50 out of 10. 8, 9, and 10. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Refuge manager Denny Holland.
Fish and Wildlife Service just bought this 500 acres of marshland through proceeds from the duck stamp. And we bought it for the black duck. The black duck is a species of special concern to the Fish and Wildlife Service due to loss of habitat, development occurring along the edge of their range, their nesting range. We're losing the population slowly. We think that through habitat purchases, nesting areas such as this marsh, that we can reverse the downward trend. But of course, black ducks are not the only thing here. We have snow geese and a number of other species that use these particular marshes.
While the money from duck stamp sales is used to buy wetlands for migratory waterfowl, hundreds of other wildlife species benefit. Those that are plentiful and those that are endangered, like the whooping crane. Everyone who enjoys wildlife, bird watchers, fishermen, photographers, refuge visitors, together with sportsmen, can ensure a future for America's wildlife by buying a duck stamp. It's the most direct way you can help wildlife.
I have heard the big geese honking in the gray September sky. I have seen their dark wings flashing by the thousands as they fly. Heard the whistling wings of swans in flight. Watch pintails turn as one. And each fall I stand in wonder as the journey is begun. Your flights, they are long, stretching thousands of miles. So stop in your refuge and rest for a while. Then on the southern wetlands, where winters are warm, where flocks settle down till spring's on the dawn. Okefenokee, the Chincoteague too, each refuge a lifeline to help see you through. One spring morning in the cattails I saw mallards return. On that bright blue day the snow geese arrived 10,000 strong. Northbound on the flyways, their bright wings beat back the sun. And each spring I stand in wonder as their new lives are begun. Among the north wetlands where nesting is done, your courting and hatching and rearing's begun. Sand Lake, Great Meadows, some to Union Slough, each refuge a lifeline to help see you through. White River, Sacramento, the creek like a sing.